Angela Merkel was all but out of the political game, but then came the coronavirus. Now she's enjoying some of her best opinion polls as her time as German chancellor. Let's take a look at why that is and what Germany is doing right during the pandemic. Angela Merkel has been Chancellor for Germany since 2005, and in the early years she was pretty much all around successful. But during the migrant crisis, starting back in the middle of 2015, her and her political party, the CDU, took a great hit in the opinion polls. You see, Merkel implemented something called the open doors policies, which would take in hundreds of thousands of migrants throughout 16 and 17. It escalated in 2018 when Germany took in a total of 1 million migrants in that year alone. In terms of amount, that is more than any of the other Western countries. And you can see here in the opinion polls how her party, the CDU, took a big hit during those times. Now, it wasn't only Merkel's open doors policies that were hugely unpopular. Merkel found herself in a time where a lot of the nations around the world were electing leaders that would take care more of the people of the nation than the international community. They would elect nationalism over globalism. So when Merkel began adopting more and more policies of the European Union, which focuses more on the health of the Union than the health of single countries, the trust that the German people had in Chancellor Merkel began quickly to fade. Through all of this, remember that Germany is a proud country and they have reasons to feel that way. In spite of the obvious tragedies of World War I and II, Germany has worked its way out of the past through a strong, solid workforce in the lower and middle class. Now combine that with a strong feeling of love for country and you have the German people. So when Merkel submitted Germany more and more to the will of the EU through 2018 and 19, her political career seemed doomed. This is an article from around that time, and it reads, "The European leaders fear Angela Merkel's weakened power could be a liability for the bloc." You see, there were rumors back then that the European leaders were looking for a substitute for Angela Merkel. Imagine having done all of what she did for the EU, resulting in the German people to lose faith in her, and then after all of that, now they're looking for a substitute. I mean, you gotta say, that's a little tough. So during these times, her party's numbers were at an all-time low. They were hovering around 27-26%. That is until the pandemic happened. So to give her credit, and as the polls show here, she regained a lot of the favorability numbers. Now her party is hovering around 38%, a solid 11-point increase. So let's read this article from the German DW. It reads, "Germans rally behind Merkel amid coronavirus crisis." A recent poll shows that Chancellor Angela Merkel's Conservatives has seen a spike in popularity as Germany battles the coronavirus pandemic. It goes on to read, "In times of great need, citizens tend to rally behind their governments. This happens in democracies as well as autocratic regimes. As such, it's hardly surprising that the government's approval ratings are up, according to the latest ARD Deutschland trend poll. But the extent of the surge is nevertheless impressive, and it is impressive. A couple of weeks ago, hardly anyone in Germany knew what the novel coronavirus was. The country's coalition government had seemingly run out of steam, and disaffection among Germans had become palpable, as we just saw in the polls. Chancellor Angela Merkel's Conservatives did poorly in the Hamburg local elections. Centrist Germans were warming to the Greens, and right-wingers were enthralled by the populist AfD. Now, saying that they were warming up to the Greens or Grüne is actually an understatement, because as you can see here in the polls, actually Grüne overtook the CDU at one point in 2019. That's very recent. Alright, so that brings us up to 2020. And just like any good politician, Angela Merkel has seized on the opportunities of the pandemic and regained a lot of her momentum. But even though Angela Merkel has gained some favorability back, her political career, I would bet, depends heavily on whether or not she is willing to budge on these EU policies that got her in this sticky position to begin with. She is still the face of the EU and the leader of Germany, but the lessons of history should teach her that before she makes decisions that radically change her own country, she needs to have the will and the voice of the people behind her. So listen, she has been a good role model during the pandemic with her calm nature, doing more frequent speeches that would unite the nations, and she has led Germany to have one of the lowest death rates in all of Europe, which is incredible when you look at the countries right around her. Italy, Spain, and France are all suffering from some of the highest death rates during the pandemic. So she does have something to be proud of. I just hope that she will lead Germany down a prosperous path, and it won't happen without having the will of the people behind her. Let me know how you think she's been doing during this pandemic. Was I right? Was I wrong in my assessment? I'd love to hear from you. So hit me with a subscribe if you like this video, and thanks for watching the full video. Tomorrow's video will be up around the same time as today. Alright, take care!